a female creature with serpentine curls. The subject is so striking and terrifying that the 16th century poet Gaspare Mortola once wrote, "Flee, for if your eyes freeze in wonder, it will turn you to stone." With writhing reptilian hair, a gaping mouth, and a severed, bleeding head, the creature is depicted as it realizes it has been severed from its body. She is none other than Medusa. Medusa, Medusa, Medusa. Since the earliest days of Western civilization, when myths were forged with fire and stone, society has been fascinated by the imagination of the ancient Greeks. Ancient Greek myths are full of gods, titans and giants, while a plethora of mythological monsters have captivated viewers on the big screen. But perhaps no female character is as popular as Medusa, who could turn man to stone with just one look. From a skin-tight villain in the Powerpuff Girls to the scathing metaphor for Great Britain's Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher in the hit song Madame Medusa, the myth of Medusa still lives on in modern pop culture over the past 2 decades. The character has appeared again and again in cinema, mostly in glamorous form. Natalia Putianova lent some supermodel power to the 2010 remake of Titanfall, while Uma Thurman was a particularly charming figure in Percy Jackson and the Lightning Steel. Even the House of Versace took inspiration from Medusa, placing the beautiful before the cursed version of her at the center of its iconic logo, with long curls in a circular meander. Unlike other figures in Greek mythology, most of us know Medusa, even if we can't remember the details of the myth. A quick look and you will find snakes, a deadly stare, and a mood of destruction. In her book, Literature and Fascination, Sibyl Bombach argues that the myth has endured in part thanks to our increasing desire for grand narratives often revolving around dangerous female seduction. Medusa is now an image that combines poison, horror, and seductive charm. A quick Google search wouldn't show otherwise, as Perseus decapitates Medusa, and the winged horse Pegasus is freed from her severed neck. After using the petrifying case to defeat his enemies in battle, Perseus delivers the head of the Gorgon to Athena, who places it on her shield. Through his male-centered narrative, Medusa became synonymous with horror. If we go back to Greek antiquity, Medusa was omnipotent, gifted with the power to kill and atone. Sculptors and painters used Medusa's head as a repulsive symbol to ward off evil spirits, but her tragic beauty was an even greater inspiration. Take, for example, the mosaic floor on display at the Kitty, where Medusa's unruly, snuggy curls are depicted as tousled hair blown by the wind, and her petrified gaze is an elegantly turned head. Looking from the center of the mosaic, a protective talisman within a shield of concentric circles. There are countless other examples where she's certainly portrayed more as a muse than a monster. In the Renaissance, however, this aura of mystery gave way to terror. Cellini's 1554 bronze statue depicts a triumphant Perseus over her corpse, holding aloft the severed head. It was a matter of politics. Cellini had been asked to use the heroic narrative of Perseus, the son of Zeus, sent to kill Medusa, as a way to impress upon the people of Florence the power of the Medici house. Other artists followed suit. In 1598, Caravaggio painted his nightmarish ritual shield. He also wanted a work that would win the admiration of the Medici. Thus, he depicted Medusa at the moment of her conquest, conveying her awesome power to the viewer. We go to the French Revolution, where for a while Medusa had become a force for change. The Jacobins had it as an emblem of French liberty, turning the demonic symbol into a means of overthrowing the regime. Meanwhile, romantics such as the poet Percy Bysshe Shelley moved on to other depictions of her in the 19th century. as their features have been inserted into blood-stained, severed heads. A famous caricature, in fact, depicts Trump as Perseus brandishing the head of his electoral opponent. When it comes to silencing women, Western culture has been doing it for thousands of years, writes Mary Beard in Women and Power, a Manifesto. Beard says the exclusion of women from modern power structures can be traced back to classical antiquity. Whenever male authority is threatened, she writes, Medusa, the archetypical unruly woman, appears to show the dangers of female agency.